I'm Tanner Martin, your host of All Things Awesome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Spider-Man news. Again, it's all over the place. It's kind of started to die down, but it's really reignited an older debate that Donald Glover had a huge part in starting, and that is, can Peter Parker be something other than white? Could he be Asian? Could he be Hispanic? Could he be black or Arabic or could he be anybody? And that's the question that internet comment sections are just roaring over. People are either saying yes he can or no he can't. There's not really a middle ground there. And if you've seen my other All Things Awesome videos, you know that I think absolutely Spider-Man can be cast racially blind. I think Spider-Man can be anybody, and that's part of the awesomeness of his character. I think that we need a newer version of Spider-Man, and I think not only for having a new Spider-Man, but also for a lot of the recent things that have been going on, I think it would be a very good thing to cast an actor that isn't white to play Peter Parker. And that might be blasphemy to some of you Spider-Man fans, but just hear me out. I'm going to speculate on why and how they could or should cast a black Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Now I have the perfect casting choice, and I'm sure you can guess it's Donald Glover. Now, I know people are saying, drop it, he's too old, but I'm gonna speculate on a couple of ways on how they could do it to where he wouldn't be too old to play Peter Parker, and how they could still have all the story elements, and really just make the best Spider-Man movie that it could possibly be. Now, I understand that there's almost zero chance, like 0.001% chance of this actually happening. One, because I'm making it, and two, because they've already said, Marvel and Sony have already said that they're going to go with high school aged white Peter Parker. And that's fine, I'm sure they're going to do it justice, but I think that they should do something different with it, and since this is the internet, I'm allowed to speculate and say whatever I want, so I'm going to sit here on my speculation couch and tell you how I think Civil War should happen with Spider-Man. But before that, let me tell you why I think Donald Glover is the perfect casting choice. Number one, he's an extremely talented actor. I mean, look at his work in Community, his work in even The Lazarus Effect, which if you watch my review, I wasn't a huge fan of, but he is one of the main draws to that. He is a great actor. He is really talented, and he's very underrated in the movie industry and the entertainment business as a whole, and this is something that would allow him to break through and really show his acting talent. Number two, he is funny. He's a comedian. Funny is what he does. He could do a take of Peter Parker / Spider-Man that we've never seen before, because he just has those comedic muscles that he could just show off and flex in the dialogue and in the satirical format that Spider-Man is. But he can also play the awkward geekiness of Peter Parker. Reason number three, he's a successful screenwriter, which means he has more to bring to the table than acting or just comedy. He's a very good screenwriter, and right out of college was hired for 30 Rock, and from there has just had writing credits, and he's a very talented screenwriter as well. So he could bring more to the table rather than just being an actor. He could offer some insight, and as a person that loves the Spider-Man character, he could really help flesh him out and really make Peter Parker and Spider-Man something so new that we haven't seen before. Number four, kind of a smaller reason, but he has the stature. He looks like Peter Parker. And I know a lot of you are saying he's black, he doesn't look like Peter Parker. No, he looks like Peter. Other than his skin color, he looks like Peter Parker. He can pull off the glasses. He is a smaller build. He's awkward. He's kind of lengthy. He looks like Peter Parker. And with that, looking like Peter Parker, he'll look like Spider-Man. So his skin color aside, he could definitely be Peter Parker. Reason number five, he's nerdy in real life. I mean, just watch his comedy stand-up special, Weirdo. He is one of the nerdiest entertainers there are, or that I'm aware of, and that means it would just be so seamless for him to just go right into the Peter Parker role. And then his comedy and his satire put together with his geekiness and his nerdiness and his awkwardness, that's the parallel right there between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. In a lot of ways, he's already playing Peter Parker as Donald Glover, because think about it. Peter Parker, what is he? He's geeky, he's nerdy, he's awkward. When he's Spider-Man, he's confident, satirical, and just a jokester in a lot of ways, but he's a badass. Now, think of it, now look at Donald Glover. Oh, and also, Spider-Man is misunderstood. Now, look at Donald Glover. He's geeky, awkward, and he has a lot of nerdiness going on. And then, but when he's Childish Gambino, his hip hop moniker, he is confident, satirical, and just a badass. I mean, and as far as in the hip hop sense goes, he's a lyrical badass. And Donald Glover is one of the most underrated and misunderstood entertainers in Hollywood right now. I mean, he's so talented, but has very little exposure as to like a mainstream audience. And again, this could really just open up the possibilities for him and the Spider-Man movie as a whole. Reason number 6, he really, really, really likes the character. I mean, he would do it justice for that alone. I mean, he has the acting ability, he has the comedic ability, he's a screenwriter, he has so much to bring to the table, he has the stature, he has everything, and above all else, he really, really, really loves the Spider-Man character. And he believes in it, and he wants it to be great, and in that, he could make it great. And I have no reservations about that. I'm sure he could make it a great character with the right writing and the right directing and producing and all of the suits behind this movie. If they did it right, he would just kill it as Spider-Man. Okay, now to the really fun part, the speculation. Here's how I think it should or could play out in Civil War. Now, this would involve Marvel and Sony keeping the actor who is playing Spider-Man totally secret. They can't tell anybody. They have to find a way to keep it totally under wraps. That way we see it when he's unmasked in Civil War. So amidst all of the Civil War conflict, where there's news, just clips of Tony and Cap, like maybe there's like press conferences and they're fighting, they're having, they're throwing like words at each other and things like that, and there's obvious unrest between the two of them. Smaller news clips start popping up of this masked vigilante that is calling himself Spider-Man, and no one knows who he is. He's shrouded in mystery, and no one knows exactly where he came from. He's just kind of almost out of the blue, and the newscasts are kind of like marking him as this masked, shrouded in mystery vigilante who wants to be some sort of Avenger or something. But that's secondary to the over compelling story arc of Tony and Cap at odds. Then one day, as finally that first fight scene between Iron Man and Cap, they finally fight somewhere on like the streets of New York, and it's just causing mayhem, and like Cap is trying to stop it, Tony is trying to stop it, but at the same time they're not, because they're so angry at each other that they keep fighting. And some sort of smaller cataclysm happens, like a train derailment, and none other than Spider-Man comes and he saves the train and he stops the cataclysm from happening. And while Tony and Cap are fighting, they go, "Oh, okay, wow, that guy's awesome. I want him." Both of them, they both say, "I want him on my side. He just stopped a train from being derailed and falling into the Hudson," or whatever. I don't know why there would be a train, blah, whatever. But this would start to ignite their interest in Spider-Man for their side of the Civil War, and that could start the tension of the pulling on each side of Spider-Man's morals. Well, then guess what? Tony gets to Spider-Man first, and Donald Glover, that we don't know he's Donald Glover yet, but Donald Glover could change his voice. This would be the first time Spider-Man talks in the whole film. Could change his voice, something almost in a way kind of like mocking Batman. I think that would be really, really funny, and it would really cause it could really open up like the idea for like banter between Tony and Peter as Spider-Man, and he's got this weird voice, and Tony knows that he's doing a weird voice, but he just kind of accepts it, trying to get Spider-Man on his side. Then Tony convinces Spider-Man to unmask at a press conference, and then when he does, he lifts up his mask, and you see that it's Donald Glover as Spider-Man, and fans go crazy. And everyone is like, yes, it finally happened. And then there's some mad people, but the movie's going to be so good that they can't even be angry. So bam! Unmasking. It's Donald Glover. He's smiling. He's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. And everyone's like, whoa. And even Tony is like, I wasn't expecting that. Donald's like, well, Peter Parker is like, well, you weren't expecting what? Tony could be like, I was just thought she'd be taller. And that would be hilarious, because like you're like touching on the fact that no one's expecting Spider-Man to be played by a black actor. And you could kind of like put that in the film, which would be hilarious. Now, I know that this would involve a lot of secrecy on the part of Marvel and Sony, but it'd be totally worth it when Peter Parker unmasks himself and you just see that it's Donald Glover, and you see that it's a new take, and already everything is different, and it's refreshing. It's right here where you learn the origin story of Spider-Man. You learn that Peter Parker is in college. He got his powers while he was in college rather than it being in high school. I know it's a little bit different, but hey, let's change the origin story a little bit to fit this awesome story. He gets his powers in college, and he has been using them for a couple of years now, and he's getting used to them, and he wants to branch out and become a better hero, and that's why he decided to unmask himself so that he could be taken under the guidance of Tony Stark. And maybe he's 22 or 23, and he's been in college for 2 or 3 years. And yeah, he took a gap year because he felt like it. Yeah, Peter Parker took a gap year, didn't go straight to college. Now he's in college, and he got his powers in college, and he's been using them in college and for street-level crime. So this way, he would have been bit by the spider that gave him his powers a couple years before Civil War. The things with Uncle Ben would have already happened, and then bam, no superhero origin story. We just know that he's Spider-Man and that it's going to be awesome. And then from here, Peter Parker's life just turns to complete crap. He has to move out of Aunt May's home to keep her safe. So he ends up staying with Tony Stark, and that's after he gets kicked out of college for being some sort of vigilante. Like, the college doesn't want the stigma for having Spider-Man be their student, so he's staying with Tony now, and they're kind of like science broing it out, but not really bros, because Tony Stark is so much older, so they would be like Tony would be like his science uncle, I guess you could say. Now Peter Parker is staying with Tony at Stark Tower. It was Avengers Tower, now it's Stark Tower, due to the Civil War business, and Cap decides to confront Tony once again. But since Tony is in his own tower, and he has Jarvis and everything, he is just destroying Cap. It is no contest, and it's like a fist fight, but still, it's destruction. He stands no chance against Tony. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is just standing aside, and he doesn't know whose side to take at this point, because it's Captain America and Iron Man. It's Tony Stark and Captain America. He doesn't know whose side to take. He's just watching and listening, because at this point, Tony and Cap could be having this really cool dialogue while they're fighting that would be just really interesting to see, because they were friends, and now they're fighting, and they're having a verbal confrontation while they're having a physical confrontation, which would be really cool. And it is at this point that Spider-Man realizes he made a huge mistake, and that he actually agrees with Captain America. And as Captain America is just getting just pummeled by Tony, Peter decides that he has to side with Captain America at this point, and he webs Tony to the wall, and he carries Cap out and swings away. And Spider-Man helping Captain America escape would really like solidify the change from side to side. And right there, that scene right there would really be reminiscent of the comics, and the comic cover of them two pulling on the arms, like Cap and Tony pulling on the arms of Spider-Man. And it would be it wouldn't be literally that, they're not literally pulling on the arms of Spider-Man, but it would be like a film adaptation of that, which is what this is, and it would just be very, very cool and very reminiscent of the comics. Now I'm just going to stop there, because I don't want to spoil this made-up story that I just made myself. It's that good to me. I don't want to spoil it. And I think it would be so cool if Marvel just took what I just made and kind of just grew upon it and did their own little thing with it, but had Donald Glover as Spider-Man, did the unmasking in the film, not tell us who the actor is, and all of this, and have the parallels between Tony and Cap, and all of these things happened similar to how I just kind of played it out. Now that's never going to happen, because Marvel's not even going to see this, but wouldn't it be cool? I mean, we wouldn't even know that Donald Glover was Spider-Man until he unmasks in the press conference. That would be amazing. Now I know what some of you are saying, I want white Spider-Man. Well, okay, listen. Here's what we could do, or here's what they could do. They could cast Miles Morales in a racially blind manner as well. They could make him white, have it start with Black Peter Parker, and then in a couple, after many Donald Glover Spider-Man movies, right at the cap where he's too old to play Peter Parker anymore. Pass the torch down to a racially blind casted Miles Morales. Have him be white. Or try this on for size. Instead of having Donald Glover pass the torch on to Miles Morales, let's have him pass the torch on to a female spider hero, like Spider-Woman, or Spider-Girl, or Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen would be amazing. And we would have seen two incarnations of Spider-Man that we'd never think we'd see on the big screen, and then we get to see him, and it's totally new and refreshing and different. Now, I'm a little afraid to say this. I want you to tell me in the comments what you think about this whole story that I just built and having Donald Glover as Spider-Man and possibly passing the torch on to a female spider hero. But remember, you guys, play nice. This is supposed to be an interesting, fun discussion. Racial discrimination is never a joke. It's never funny. So if you're a supporter of Donald for Spider-Man, let's push. Let's make this happen. He said he's going to leave it up to the fans. If we push hard enough, I think we can get Donald for Spider-Man. I really do. I think if Kevin Feige sees that we want this and Sony sees that we want this, I think that they'll totally do it. And I think they'll do it really well and do it a lot of justice and have it really be the Spider-Man film we've been looking for. Casting Spider-Man in a racially blind manner would totally be a huge step forward for the Hollywood and movie industry toward diversity, which is something that we really need. We're in, the 21st century. It's time for a very diverse movie industry. One that casts actors and actresses for being the right fit for the character and their talent and their ability, rather than their looks or their gender or their race. So this is All Things Awesome. I'm your host, Tanner Martin. Tell me what you thought of the video in the comments below. And if you want to watch more All Things Awesome videos, just wait till directly after this word.